Ghanaian economy is said to be recovering from the shocks of COVID-19. But what is the state of industries in Ghana today? Are they in a better position to aid the much talked about recovery, or they are going through some challenges? And how are things doing right now? Are they still struggling? That's why we are trying to get some answers on the state of industries in Ghana today on PM Express Business Edition. And to help me get some answers to these burden questions is the Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries, Akwaboah, live with me in the studio here to also get from him what is the state of the stimulus package for industries and how are they dealing with competition from the Far East. All these things wrapped up on PM Express on the PM Express show tonight on Business Edition. We take a short break and be right back as we look at the state of industry's recovery in Ghana amid COVID-19. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition. As you look at the state of industries in Ghana today amid COVID-19, we've heard about the economy recovering. But is it the same, or can the same be said for industries in Ghana today? Or they are still struggling? What about the state of the stimulus package for all these firms out there? Are they now in a better position to recall some of the workers that they asked to go home or not? Akwaboah is the Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries, and he's joining me here to get answers to all these issues out there and what is facing industries in Ghana today. So thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it so much for you having time. We're struggling hard to get you.
Well, unfortunately, we get too busy with too many things.
Yeah. So how are things right now? Because when I saw some of the data from the Bank of Ghana, it suggested that, things are picking up. I was like, okay, the Ghana Statistical Service data industry was a little bit picking up. So I said, okay, maybe, voila, our challenges are over. You see the data, you see everything. How is the situation right now? Things right now?
Well, thank you very much, George. Yes, I think it is true. Things are picking up if you compare to the previous, latter part of the previous year, especially in the peak of the pandemic, up to early part of the year, we could see signs of recovery. Indeed, the AGI Business Barometer reports the last quarter last year, in fact, the third quarter, we did predict that by the middle of this year, recovery should happen. So we are seeing the recovery happening. And from more indications, industries are gradually picking up. And the reason is that the economy is opening up, not just around Ghana. Ghana is part of the global system. And therefore, other economies picking up has impact on Ghana. And indeed, we've seen recovery and opening up in a lot of countries. So it's impacting on industry. So we've seen some recovery, no doubt about it. But some areas, recovery has been quite slow. If you look at the beverage industry, for example, the food industry in general, the pickup has been quite slow because the demand side hasn't picked up that much. Don't forget that because of the COVID situation, the big gatherings are not taking place, the big funerals, the big parties and all that. Even though they are gradually coming up, we are not having it in those big numbers. And even these days when we attend programs, hardly do they serve buffet and all that. So a lot of things
everything is packed up or something.
Sometimes it's packed up, sometimes nothing is served.
Water, more virtual meetings.
More virtual meetings. Yeah. So the gatherings are reducing, and they all have impact on the economy because there are suppliers of all these products. And if they don't have an opportunity and an avenue to supply, it means that for them, demand is low. And we also know that when it comes to the big parties, the big funerals, that's where the drinks are served. So those areas, they are still having challenges. And then if you look at the hospitality industry in general, it's still a big challenge for them. The hotels are recovering back just gradually.
I wanted to come in a little bit and some backtracking here. I mean, we've said that the economy is recovering. So what are the sectors that are not specific, but maybe subsectors that you think they are doing well, and those other subsectors in your area that is not doing so well as we speak now?
I think that sectors that are not directly affected by such gatherings are gradually picking up. The construction industry, for example, people are going about their normal business. I was
surprised because I stand to be educated. I look at the BOG data and cement sales have shot up. It appears the construction sector was one of the few areas that was immune from COVID. So was it that robots were building or what? Sorry.
No. Construction sector wasn't immune from COVID at all, because during the COVID period, construction really went down.
Okay.
But I think part of the reason why the data is also showing so is because the prices of cement has gone up. So when you see the volumes and you are looking at it in terms of the turnover, naturally it will go up. But in volumes, it may not have gone up that much. In fact, cement prices during COVID period was about 35 cedis or so. Today it's almost 50 cedis. So significant increase. And therefore, if you look at just the turnover in the face value, you would think that construction has gone up so much. I think one major challenge that most of the construction companies have is when they do government projects and they don't get paid. So that is one area that they have a challenge. But generally speaking, at the private sector level and at the individual level, I think that because of the economy opening up, construction is gradually picking up as well. But don't forget that very soon we are actually into the lean season. During the rainy season, it goes down a little bit. So in the third quarter, we shouldn't expect a significant increase in construction again. And the last quarter, probably it will come up again. So it's sort of fluid. But generally speaking, I would say the recovery is gradually coming up, and we are seeing it in several sectors.
But you're talking about some other sectors that are still struggling. Hospitality is expected because the demand often was coming from outside. Are there any other areas that it was expected that by now things should have picked up, but they are still struggling?
Yes, there are other areas such as the garment sector. One would have expected that has nothing to do with people coming to the country.
Because you're wearing a clothes. Whether COVID or no COVID, yes, we still have to dress up.
But don't forget that when the events are not taking place, when the big gatherings are not taking place, people are not buying new clothing and all that. You may not see, there is the micro issues that impact at the macro level. So at the micro level, at the individual level, when people are not buying so much, the global effect is that the demand generally will drop.
A lot of people are working from home.
People are working from home, so you are not dressing that much. In your beautiful suit, if you are not coming to the office, I'm sure you are home, you wouldn't be wearing this. So all these are having effect to some extent. So garment, you wouldn't say it's picked up that much. The food sector, I mentioned it. The beverage sector, similar. And the construction area, certain areas are picking up, others are slow. So it's a combination of different things. But I think generally speaking, the recovery is real. We are seeing signs of recovery. People are having access to their raw materials now because the other countries, such as China and other places where they get a lot of their imports from, are also opening up. I mean, they've gradually opened up. So now it's easier to actually get to your raw materials. At some point, that was all having an effect. But I think now they are getting access to the raw materials. So that is helping. But the demand side of the equation is where the problem comes from. The demand is not growing. People are also concentrating on essential products because in pandemic situation or in a difficult situation, your concentration is to get basic, items to live on. So the food, the shelter, and basic things. Other areas that are considered a bit luxury, like vehicles, like things that you can manage, people who are managing it, they are not spending that much. So I think generally speaking, expenditure hasn't been that high, even though it has improved over the period.
But during the COVID times, we were made to understand that because of restrictions, not even only in Ghana, but even in other countries as well, we had some supply challenges. And that is why we saw in the earlier part, spike in prices of certain goods and even services. But recently, it appears that it is getting out of hand. There's this talk about, I'm not in that industry, I'm not building yet, I'm not built yet. Prices of construction materials have spiked over the period, and even somebody has even petitioned Parliament for them to look into it. At the industry level, is it that you're not producing? Or is the import cost or import inflation that is feeding into that? What is happening in the construction space, as far as you're concerned?
Yes, and let me just quickly indicate that it's not just the construction space. Prices of several other things have gone up.
Wow.
Yes.
But they are not impacting on the broader inflation numbers.
Yeah, but you see, if you look at the way the inflation is computed, the food basket is a major determinant. So if you have good harvests in a particular season and the food prices are not going up that much, it may not have that much effect on inflation. So that is what has cushioned us a bit. But other prices have gone up, and it's been an issue. And it's largely because we are highly import dependent. The import dependency is not only in terms of importation of finished products, but also importation of raw materials. So if you take the cement example you are giving, the clinker that is used in producing cement, the bulk of it is imported. Most of the inputs or raw materials that we process in Ghana is imported. And unfortunately, for some time now, cost of freight has gone up so much. In some instances, more than tripled. You know, and that's having a major effect because, and I mean, if you go to the market and you import your finished goods or raw materials, and it's costing you so much because of cost of freight, you have to pass it on in the form of higher prices to your consumers. And that, I believe, is what is taking, having a
Mr. Akwaboah, two things here. Sorry to cut in, but cost of freight going up. Interesting. Is it because that most of these industries out there are now picking up, so there's a supply challenge at the global level, or generally maybe the risky nature of the West African when it comes to marine insurance and all those things, or what is leading to that? And there's a flip side of it also about whether it's also an indictment on our local industry, because then it appears that most industries now are just doing import packaging and not necessarily producing these stuff. Let's first deal with the freight costs that are shot up all of a sudden. What are you gathering, or what are you picking up, the data given to you as the reason for that?
Yes, it's not peculiar to West Africa or Ghana. It's actually a global issue. And it's largely because it's still attributed to the COVID situation. Global demand went down. And you know the way the shipping lines operate. When they have about a certain percentage of their cargo, they move. With the idea that when they make stops on the way, they pick up other cargo and move on. So they don't wait for the cargo to fill up. But because of the challenge, they are not getting enough volumes. So they wait till the cargo has to be fully full before they move. And in that sense, it makes it more difficult for you to get your goods regularly. You know, and then when they move, the cargo is already filled up. So countries like us, which are small countries, the stops are not that many, and therefore it affects the flow of the goods into your market. So for them to bring it, then they increase the freight. So these are some of the reasons. It's not because there's so much recovery and we are producing so much. On the contrary, because of the slowdown in the global economy, it's affecting the movement of goods around the world, and that is affecting the cost of freight. So that's the major part of it. The question of whether it's not an indictment on
local industries that are not producing. Because you met the demand during COVID. Even when it came to food, a lot of firms were producing locally to meet the demand.
Yes, but we are still producing to meet the demand. They are doing very well on that. But the problem is that we are highly import dependent in the sense that our raw materials are still largely imported. You know, manufacturing is a complex issue. The whole supply chain must work. The fact that you are manufacturing doesn't mean you are manufacturing 100% locally, unless it's probably food products. But a lot of the things we produce, we don't have the entire raw material base in Ghana, so you import them. Therefore, if prices are going up, it has an effect. If the materials are not available, you can't even produce. That's why we got panic a bit when during the lockdown period, when countries were locking down, we were afraid at some point we'll not get enough material to feed our factories. And it's also teaching us a lesson that for certain products that are essential to our survival, we must ensure that we have the entire chain locally available, so that in case of pandemic, in terms of situation like this, when countries are locking up, we will not be found wanting. We'll be able to produce our goods locally. So I think that it's a lesson that, so it's not an indictment. We should rather learn from it and promote local industries.
Why can't we? Because I've said that, Mr. Akwaboah. Sorry, but since when I was a young boy, you know, there was promotion about made in Ghana. There was even called that we can produce, give us the goods and all the rest. So if even as at now, we are importing majority of our inputs for what we produce, then where's the problem coming from? That all along we couldn't have worked to ensure that the raw supplies are gotten from this country.
But you see, one thing we should appreciate is that manufacturing is not easy at all. If you want to do the entire...
Tell me more.
Yes, if you want to do the entire... It's very easy to go into trading, buy and sell. The risk level is lower. You are likely to have a bank finance and insurance and all that. And these days, people don't even pay for the goods. They do supplier's credit. It gets to the port at the time of clearing. You get a bank to avalize it, then you import, and then it's in the system. Within 3 months, you have recovered. You know, so it's very easy that way. But when it comes to manufacturing, you have your machines to deal with. You have raw materials to deal with. You have the human resource to deal with. Technology, so many factors goes into it. And therefore, if you don't get it right, you are in trouble. Besides, bank finance for manufacturing is also not that easy, especially the SME level. So it makes it difficult if you want to do the entire chain of things here. So what most people do is that for basic raw materials, we import and then you add value. Manufacturing today, everywhere in the world, when you say you are manufacturing cars, it does not mean you are doing every part of the car from your factory. You add value, and that is what we are doing. I think, and what we are expecting to do, and what we really want to do, is to do backward integration, add more value. The value addition can be in stages. If at the beginning you are adding, say, 40% value, that is fine. But by and large, you start backward integration, and then you add value to about 60%, and then 80%. If you can have the raw material locally, you do it. So it's a gradual process. But you see, those who are already in manufacturing have been struggling. And they are struggling because factors that are critical for effective manufacturing has not been in our favor. Cost of electricity has always been a problem. Cost of capital, medium to long-term capital. I mean, these are issues we talk about all the time.
All the time.
I know it's
AGI
like
barometer.
We are talking about it all the time. Unfortunately, they are not going away. Whoa. They are still with us. Yes. I mean, even though we've seen improvement, policy rates coming down, and therefore interest rate has come down a bit, but people are still borrowing at 20%. I remember today we had a program, and there was somebody from European Union who says, hey, in my country, if a bank charges 20%, he'll be arrested because it's suicidal. But we are experiencing that in Ghana.
1%, 0.1%.
Exactly. So if you look at it, if you want to go into manufacturing, bear in mind that for manufacturing finance, you need medium to long term. And if you need medium to long term and it's at this high cost of interest, you can imagine that within 5 years, how much interest would have paid. Therefore, if you want to do the entire chain of things here, then you will struggle. So it's not an indictment on manufacturers. It's really economic strategy issue that we have to look as a country. What are we doing about manufacturing?
What should be done for you now?
I think that we have to look at, first of all, our policy concerning manufacturing. Are we having in mind of becoming a manufacturing hub, for example, for West Africa and Africa as a whole? If you have that in mind, then the strategy we are adopting, I appreciate initiatives that government has come up with. The one district, one factory, brilliant idea. We are spreading manufacturing around now. But then, if we don't fix the policy environment right, these factories that we are setting up, very soon we'll also start struggling.
Like policy environment.
So you need to look at the cost of energy. Why should industry continue to subsidize residential or domestic users of energy, when indeed domestic consumption is now accounting for more than 50% of the total energy we produce in this country? So the smaller group is subsidizing the bigger group. That is not done. Okay?
Because you're commercial.
You are commercial. Yeah. So you should bank on me to pay your bills whilst you become careless in the use of your electricity. In Côte d'Ivoire, what they have done is that for the domestic users, you pay more than industry. And it makes economic sense because the cost of supply to you as a domestic user is not the same as cost of supply to me as an industry user. Some industries are paying about 3 million cedis a month in electricity. What will it take for you to collect that 3 million cedis? It just take 1 meter. Only one person goes to monitor it. For you to collect 3 million cedis from domestic consumers, you need a whole village, if not a town, to collect that. You can look at the number of step downs, you can look at the number of meters, and the cost of collecting, and that's where the slippages also are, the leakages all are. So the cost of supplying electricity to domestic user is not the same as supplying to me. So why should I pay more? So cost of energy is a competitive issue, and you need to get it right. Cost of capital, we've talked about it. Technology, we need to look at it. The raw material base, we were just talking about it. That if you are so much dependent on raw materials from import sources, you are at the mercy of foreign exchange dynamics. So if the foreign exchange changes and your city depreciates, then you're in trouble. So you have to look at all these dynamics, and if you want to be able to do proper manufacturing, this business environment issue has to be fixed. You need to look at strategic industries that we can conveniently produce the materials locally and supply. And then when it comes to the demand side also, I mean, even taxes. Taxes. Why shouldn't we create a condition where our tax regime will support manufacturing more than anything else? But that is not the case. Even in this year's budget, budget that was read this year, look at it. There have been some few tax adjustments, which is not helping manufacturing. Okay, we have a VAT system that has a component of indirect tax, and a direct tax. The VAT was 17.5%. Then we increased to 18.5%. And then a percentage of it, 6% now, is a levy because we are not recovering. VAT is an input tax. Therefore, the incidence of the tax is not on you, the manufacturer, it's on the final consumer. So, as an input, you pick the 17.5, now 18.5%. When you pay that to government and you are recovering, you can't recover the 18.5%. You recover 6% less. So that 6% is an additional tax on you. Most manufacturers were using the standard rate. It means that for typical traders, they have flat rate. Most of the traders have flat rate, 3%. They don't recover that. But you cannot recover as much as 6%. It's making manufacturing more expensive. So if you have all these factors in the environment, why would you go and do manufacturing? This brings to the issue of even the benchmark values. Okay? So if you're a trader and the benchmark values for your products has been reduced by 50%, it means that your duty on imported finished goods has gone down by 50%. Now, if it goes down like that, manufacturing prices is staying the same. It's making the import cheaper. So I'll go into trading, bring the goods, flood the market, and survive. You know, so these are factors that have to be looked at.
The benchmark value thing is just not good for industries?
For products that we have local capacity to produce, we should not reduce the benchmark values. For products that we don't have local capacity, maybe because of technology and sophistication nature of it, we have no problem if government decides to reduce the benchmark values. And that has been our position. We think that government has to review that policy and do it immediately, because for products such as beverages, such as food products, such as clothing, and all these other typical manufacturing products, we should not have reduced the benchmark value because it's making the imports much cheaper. And naturally, people will go for a cheaper product even if the quality is the same or whatever. And then in that case, you are killing local industries. And indeed, we've done some studies. There are some areas, if you take the oil industry, the edible oil industry, for example, some companies who are big-time producers of oil are suddenly going down, and they have reduced number of employment because of this, because the imports have come in big time and it's much cheaper, and the importers before they were not making that much profit. Sometimes they were even making losses. Now it's turned the other way around. The local manufacturers, they can't sell at those prices because the imports have become cheaper. What is the effect? The effect is that, and interestingly, some of these manufacturers are also quite big. They have the capacity to import. So they turn around and import instead of locally producing them. Otherwise, they can't survive. So if you really want to promote manufacturing and industry, then some of these factors, you really need to look at it. Discuss with industry when you are coming up with some of these policies and get it right. And I think these are the areas we need to look at.
Mr. Akwaboah, do you think that, so you believe that, for instance, the situation where industries are subsidizing for domestic users of power, that should change? Completely.
It must change, and it must change immediately. I think that our tariff structure has to be reviewed. It seriously has to be reviewed. When you go to Togo, and I'm citing examples within the sub-region. In Togo, for example, they buy power from Ghana. The power they get from Ghana is largely for industries. It's not for domestic consumption. In Côte d'Ivoire, the same. So what they have done, in the case of Côte d'Ivoire, for example, they do a lot of education on the efficiency of use of electricity. So you don't leave your light on for 30 minutes when you're not in the room because you pay for it. In Ghana, we have something we call the lifeline consumers. So they are the poor people. That's fine. if government has resources, adequate resources, to subsidize for them, let government absorb that, but don't pass it on to industry in the form of higher tariffs. I think when you do so, you make us uncompetitive. In the face of the continental free trade, we wouldn't have many industries set up here. So these are all having effects on our industries, and I think it has to be looked at.
It's a good time to talk about what is the status of the stimulus package, or was there even any stimulus package for industries?
There was a stimulus package, and indeed...
And a lot of your members benefited for it.
Well, I think that we have to understand the structure of the stimulus package that came. It was basically for the small enterprises, which was administered by the MBSSI.
I'm looking at the bigger one, that 2 billion or that 2.5 billion that we were talking about.
The bigger one came in much later. The smaller one that came from the MBSSI, that was administered by the MBSSI, was introduced early part of the COVID pandemic. And I am aware that a lot of small enterprises got it. Of course, several others didn't get it. And to give you an example, government had earmarked about 600 million or so. The application that came, I'm aware of these figures because we were being fed with information, was about 800,000. So it meant that if you are to share it equally, on the average, every enterprise will get less than 1,000 cedis.
Oh.
So it means that we didn't really have that big volume of money to distribute in the first place. So naturally, it's not everybody who will get it. But the money was given out, and indeed people got some. But that is more for the smaller enterprises. For the relatively bigger companies, the second aspect of the stimulus package, it came in the form of a guarantee fund, and it only started this year. And you have to go through a process. You have to see your bankers. Your bankers have to accept to give you the loan, and then it's guaranteed for you. So that is the dynamic. But that one, I think, has been quite difficult for people to assess, and they are working on it. So you wouldn't say that it's made a massive change. But for the small enterprise level, the stimulus package
should
was
it be
good itself.
fast-tracked?
Oh, I think so. I think it should be fast-tracked. And I think government has also come up with another program, which is the Ghana Cares program, which is being looked at as a possibility of injecting about 30 billion Ghana cedis from the government side, and then expecting that that will be leveraged to get about 70 billion from the private sector. So we're talking of in total about 100 billion. So the CARES program also sounds quite interesting, but it's not really taken off yet. So I think that if you are talking of the effect or the impact of the stimulus package, I think at the small enterprise level, it's had a good impact. But the bigger ones are yet to get into full stream.
In terms of the industries picking up, can I say that some of those that are picked up, or industries, are they in a better position now to recall some of the workers that were asked to go home because of the limited challenge, or still is early days yet?
Well, I think the recovery has started.
So they've been recalled?
And therefore, as you are growing, you are expanding, you are recalling some of the workers. So indeed, that has been taking place.
Have there been people recalled?
Yes, I am aware that people have been recalled. Some people have increased their numbers and all that. But I'm not in a position to say that everyone that was laid off has been recalled. It may require some survey to do that. But I'm aware that, you need the people to produce. So once the recovery has started and general demand is growing gradually, you need these numbers as well to enable you to produce. So it is in the pipeline. It's something that is going on. But I'm sure that in terms of additional jobs, it will take a while to really reach its peak to get additional jobs created.
So, Akwaboah, I'll be taking a break very soon. We'll be looking at half year, going for mid-year budget review, the Ghana city as well, and also free trade area, African free trade area, and all other things that happen. The outlook as well going forward are things that are going to be exciting, or they are still challenging. Lending rates, it's still a big challenge. I don't know the latest barometer, what it's saying about cost of credit as well for industries and businesses. And this is PM Express Business Edition. As you look at the state of industries amid COVID-19, it appears that they are indeed picking up, but it might take a little while for the full recovery that we are looking forward to for the industrial sector. We'll take a short break, and we will be right back. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as you look at the state of Ghanaian industries or industries as a whole amid COVID-19 and how are they faring in these times? Are they doing that well? Are they going through some challenges? And the Chief Executive of the Ghana Association of Industries, Seth Akwaboah, is being in studio here to look at how things are faring. I mean, in all these challenges about import, freight and all the rest, it's the Ghana cedi. And over the past 1 week, depreciation has been something else. I mean, industries, what do you make of the challenge?
Well, I don't think it's reached a stage where we should panic. I think if you
But you've seen some sustained blips.
Yes.
1 week may be too short for you, or?
Yeah, I think it's too short because the city issue is always a very delicate matter. And if you don't handle it well, the panic that comes with it creates further problems. So we really need to be very careful when we are talking about it. I don't think that is out of hands because we've seen significant stability. I mean, the cedi to the dollar exchange right from last year or so has been relatively stable. And normally around early part of the year, you see the cedi depreciating quite fast. This time we have not experienced that. And therefore, I think government has done well, and I think global issues have all contributed to that. And we've managed to stabilize it all this while. So a bit of a blip should not be something that we should panic. Because if you don't take any panic sets in, people who don't even need the foreign currency start buying and then it creates that kind of problem, artificial shortages and all, then the prices go up. And
I'm looking at...
So I don't think it is too negative for now. Let Bank of Ghana just be sure that they intervene in the market at the right time.
And that is what you want, more of a timely intervention to meet their demand. Because I'm looking at... I know that when I engage businesses sometimes, their complaint has been how for us to halt the blip and know that even if the Ghana cedi, let me just be careful with my choice of words, that it's even 10 Ghana cedis, and they know that for the next 2 months, 4 months, it's 10 Ghana cedis, they are okay with that. So should that intervention be strategic to ensure that whatever blip that we've seen sustained, we should hold it, and make sure that businesses and industries that are in the import business and all the rest who are in the dollar business can plan and plan well?
I mean, you are sportly... you are right. You got it right on the spot. What industries and businesses want is predictable exchange rate. It does not mean that the cedi should never depreciate, but it must be depreciated within a certain range that is predictable and can be planned with. So a few blips here and there may not be an issue, but then if it's sustained, then it becomes a problem, especially if you cannot predict. And then the uncertainty sets in, and then it creates all kinds of problems. So I do agree with you that what we want is that manage the situation, intervene in the market at the right time, don't let it escalate, because otherwise you can't contain it. And I think at this moment, I don't think there's cause for
Midyear, how would you look at things? And also let's factor in your expectation, as we understand that all other things being equal. I know you're an economist. The finance minister is expected to present the mid-year review of the 2021 budget estimates. What are your expectations, and also how would you look at things for the first half year of this year?
Well, I think previously, until about 2 years ago, when we started experiencing major policy shifts and major policy introduction in the mid-year budget review. Previously, it wasn't like that. It was such that...
Just reviewing the estimates.
Just review the estimates.
But we are seeing supplementary budgets being introduced and all the rest.
Now we are seeing supplementary, so it makes it a bit unpredictable that what is going to happen. You know, it makes it difficult to predict. But generally speaking, I think that looking at how the first half year has gone, there may be some supplementary budgets required from Parliament. That we should expect that. How much, we cannot tell. And then also in terms of, we don't know how well the revenue side has been. And I think that the debt level is still quite high. And we know that has largely been contributed in recent times by the COVID. How government is managing it, because the debt stock, if it's too high, it has its own implications. In the mid-year budget review, we would expect the Minister for Finance to tell us how far we've gone in the management of our debt situation, how far we've gone with our recovery in terms of revenue How far have you gone with the target of revenue that we set up? And then what is the plan for the expenditure? So looking at all this, I expect that there wouldn't be very significant changes in the system, but there will be
more
a need
moderate.
for more.
Is there any wish from industry as in tweaking some policy measures that has impacted? Because it appears just like what you said, that the mid-year review of estimates has moved beyond that to some serious policy measures and even a supplementary budget.
Yes, we do expect some changes in the policy, especially in areas that industries have had concerns. At the beginning of the year, I talked about the tax introduction, which is not helping industry. I talked about the benchmark values, which have been introduced for quite some time now. We are asking that Ministry of Finance actually looks at it again and possibly review it. We are not asking for a total cancellation, but we are saying that for products that we have local capacity and local competitiveness to produce, support us, protect local industries, and let's produce. And leave it. So you have to be strategic, you have to be selective. We expect that in the budget, the midterm budget review, some of these issues will be looked at. The issue of, is also, I think they are also looking at major review of the electricity tariffs. As to whether to come along the mid-year budget review, we don't know. But if there is, let's look at this industry domestic, dichotomy in terms of the tariff levels. Let's look at it. So we expect all this to happen. In terms of policy rates, in terms of interest rates and all that, it's a bit difficult to predict, but our position are all being that policy rate has been constantly coming down. But even though interest rate has come down a bit, the proportion, the spread between the two is unacceptable. Let's see a more drastic change in the interest rate levels as well. And then also the development bank, which we have also been pushing for, government has finally started. All that thing been
ending of this month is going to roll out here.
So we want it to start, and therefore in the midterm budget review, we also like to see in a reflection of that in the budget. Is there a more provision being made? Because the figures that government has been talking about, it's good to start, but I can say it's not
more is needed.
Even if you mobilize about $1 billion to start, one company can consume it. Bako alone can consume $1 billion. So we need the volumes. You need huge sums of money. So in the midterm budget review, is there going to be another provision for the development bank? These are things we would like to see.
What about vaccine production? There was talk about vaccine production. I mean, has something started? I know this will take a while. Listen, it's still early days yet to have Ghanaian industries or industries in Ghana producing these COVID-19 vaccines.
It is not too difficult to produce a vaccine.
Wow, so why don't we start it today?
Yeah, but you see, the dynamics are different. Because of the nature of it, first of all, I'm aware that government has made some effort. A committee has been set up. Indeed, AGI is represented on that committee to look into the possibility of producing the vaccines here. So government has done very well in coming up with that initiative. And I know there's a committee working on it. I'm not a spokesman of the committee, so I can't give you too much information. But the little I know is that when it comes to vaccine production, it's not the mixing of the chemicals to get the vaccine that is most important. It's about the certification, the insurance that goes with it, and several dynamics so that it will be accepted by the international community before you can start, you don't need special machines per se to produce it. It's about formulation. Once you get the formulation right, and get the testing and the process through, and it's acceptable, then you can come out with it. So even the existing machines can produce it. So it doesn't require any special machines to be imported from anywhere. The existing machines within our factories, and indeed, we have some sophisticated factories that can do all kinds of things. But you need to get the formulation right. You need to get the rights. If somebody can pass it on to you as a franchise, you go through a certification process so that it's acceptable by the international community, WHO and all that, before you can actually start using it. So it's a whole long process, but I think that with the effort that is being put in, I'm sure it can.
So some progress has been made.
Some progress has been made, but I don't have...
Interim Economic Partnership Agreement, there were a lot of concerns. Now all other things being equal, there's been the full takeoff. European countries are now importing in. The fear was that it could lead to the collapse of industries and all those things. For you at AGI, what do you make of the current structure right now? And are you a little bit okay, or are you still want some amendments?
Well, I think the stage we are now, it's not a question of asking for amendments.
It's too late.
I mean, we've talked about this several times.
Yeah.
We've been part of the negotiations. Eventually, we had the interim one. It was implemented for some time. Now, in actual fact, if you look at the time scale, we should have now gone into the mainstream, the full implementation. But because some other countries have not signed on, it's still being called interim. So it's still considered interim. It means that there's still the possibility that in the near future it could be looked at again. But at this particular moment, we don't seem to have much choice. So let's monitor it and see how it goes. But I think what is important is that we build local capacity. And it's one of the issues that we raised at the time of the negotiations, that we should build local capacity so that we can match the products that are coming from Europe, you know, because otherwise we will not be able to compete with them. But then if you look at the nature of trading between Ghana and the European countries, the exchange of goods that we have, we import more machinery and things of sophisticated nature, medicines and all that. Basic things are not coming so much. The competition is not so coming so much from Europe. It's rather coming from the Far East and all that. So I think it's about strategy. And if you look at it critically, it may not necessarily collapse our industries completely. It will rather, we should look at it from the positive side of things. But we should continue the negotiations and open doors for further discussions around it.
African free trade area, it's almost half year, or it's more than half year, sorry. Have we seen more Ghanaian firms, industries, take advantage of this, or it is still in the initial stage trying to better appreciate this whole pact?
I think it's still in the initial stage. But
we've not seen more firms, because I knew about two Kasapreko and Gandor. That is an initial stage. Yeah. I don't know whether we've had more companies taking advantage of that.
You know, before the CFTA came into being, people were still doing, you know, business across Africa. You know, so it's not really new. Yeah. In West Africa in particular, we've been exporting to Nigeria, we've been exporting to Cote d'Ivoire, several other countries. So it's already happening. The test case was the Kasapreko and Gandor. And I think beyond that, a few have also tried. But if you ask me, generally speaking, it's early days yet. We are still trying, and people are still exploring and all that.
Have you seen more than 3 companies out to Gandor, making maybe about 5 or 6 or even more than that?
Yeah, it could.
A round figure, not exact numbers here, that have taken advantage of this.
Well, I think we should have at least 5 or more companies exporting to other parts of Africa. But it's not even just the numbers, but the volumes are also very important, and the countries that we are exporting to. There are strategic products that we have comparative advantage that we should be exploring. And some studies, later we can discuss that in another subsequent. There are specific products that we have comparative advantage. Some countries that could be a good target for Ghana. So we need to look at it. We also know the really competitive threats, the countries that are most competitive, in better position than us, who are likely to capture our markets if we don't manage our situation well. So we've done all this analysis, but we need to have a country strategy, you know, and that is what Ministry of Trade is still putting together. That document hasn't come up yet. We still need to have a clear country strategy that will enable us to penetrate the African market in a very strong way. But I think at this stage, it's still early days. A few people are trying. But market exploration is not easy. You really need to have your footing in the market before you can export. And it takes a while to develop. But we shouldn't give up. I think Ghana, we are in a good position to actively participate, you know, in a way that will benefit us.
I think it might be a good time as we try and wrap up, because time has not been a good friend in talking about a very exciting sector and a very challenging sector as well. So let's look forward to an outlook as we try and wrap up for the rest of the year. Are you seeing things turning around, picking up strongly, and seeing industry taking its position in 30 seconds, a minute, sir?
No, I'm always quite positive, and we've been doing our business barometer survey every quarter, and almost every time you see the optimism among Ghanaian businesses, and for me that is good. It gives us the energy to work on and to do things. So I think that in the next couple of months, up to the end of the year, I expect to see more better improvement in the economy. I expect to see industry recovery improving even further. I expect to see opening up of economies around the world and giving us more opportunities either to export or to do business with other players. Traveling around the world has been quite difficult until now. So I want to see that improve, because that is also impacting on the economy, especially in the hospitality industry. Sometimes doing business for big deals, you want to strike, you can't just do it on phone. You need to physically visit some of these countries, accessing funding from other sources. And so I really expect improvement in the next couple of months.
So Akwaboah is the Chief Executive of the Association of Ghana Industries, and we have to draw the curtain as we actually assess the state of industries in Ghana today amid COVID-19. It appears that the prospects are bright. And I know that the debate and the discussions will continue in your rooms and your offices about the outlook for industries in Ghana today. My name is George Afe. I've been your host for PM Express Business Edition. Have a great day.